Welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. For some people, it's a very, very happy week. And for other people, too bad. That's what happens with American politics. The pendulum swings. And today is happy hour. It's Friday. So we raise a glass to American democracy with our good friend Paul Mauro.
Yeah, baby.
Lawyer. Former NYPD
aspiring drunkard, apparently. With day drinking on a Friday here. What could go wrong? Check back with us in about 3 hours, folks. If I'm wearing pants, it's an accident. All right.
So,
welcome to the Greg Gutfeld Show, everybody. Thank you for being here.
What are the Bidens doing this week?
Pretty much what we're doing right now.
Now that they're all pardoned, like before, they might have been drinking their troubles away, but now they're celebrating, aren't they? Just sitting on that massive nest egg that Uncle Jim and Hunter have been putting together for years now. Do they finally get to enjoy the fruits of their crooked labor?
No, and I'm going to pour some water on everybody who's saying, wow, get out of jail free card. Mm-hmm. Because while they have been pardoned criminally, there's real potential for headaches for them still, major headaches and major exposure. Yeah, let me go into a couple of things. And I don't want to get too legalistic because it's boring. But the bottom line is, and there's a reason people don't go to law school because of these kinds of conversations. But essentially what it's come down to is this. Because you're pardoned, you now are not in danger of incriminating yourself if you're put under oath.
Yes.
So you can't take the fifth.
I think that's fascinating. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing. Why is self-incrimination removed? Because there's no crimination.
That's right. You literally cannot incriminate yourself unless you do one of two things. Commit perjury in the grand jury or under oath with Congress.
Yeah.
Or you are found in contempt, which is you won't answer.
Yes.
All right. So let me just posit a scenario that's not that far-fetched. Congress decides we're going to investigate. We got photos of not only the former vice president and president meeting with Communist Party cadres in China with his sketch box of a son, Hunter, right? And we know all this money changed hands. And there's all kinds of stories we can go into. That stuff's been, well-traveled. But bottom line is, these are national security issues. We need to find out where the money went. Are people compromised? What did you tell them? What did you know? You're not exactly of, totally sound mind from what everybody can see. Did you blurt something out we need to know, et cetera? Okay. So they open that investigation in committee, in a classified environment, wherever. We need to know, Hunter Biden, you're subpoenaed into Congress. Or somebody who wasn't pardoned, like Vindman, for instance, or somebody else.
Yep.
We're going to go at
and
you.
he was the impetus for the Trump impeachment.
And the Ukraine stuff.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so he's very Ukraine adjacent. So we've decided we're going to put together a grand jury. And grand juries have a very broad mandate. You can just put together a grand jury.
And they're mysterious.
They're mysterious,
Yes.
but you can put together a grand jury to issue a report.
Oh.
So we're convening a grand jury, or we're putting together a congressional investigation, either of those two. And we're going to subpoena in you, Hunter Biden, you, James Biden. They come in and they don't talk. They're in contempt.
They're held in contempt of Congress or contempt of court. Interesting.
And so they can't say, I'm taking the fifth. That doesn't work because you're not in danger of being incriminated.
Wow. So why don't they do that to Anthony Fauci? I mean,
so
Rand
that's the
Paul
next shoe to drop.
Is now a committee chair, and he's been waiting for Republicans to have the majority so he can control what's on the docket of these committees. So why not have Anthony Fauci come forward? Because, and Fauci would be one of those people like, I can't be questioned because I had a pardon from the president. Therefore, I'm going to wear a mask.
That's how he sounds.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. God, he's just really, you look up nerd, and he was my wife's pharmacist growing up. He used to work the register,
Really?
Yeah, he's been like a creepy nerd from the get. Anyway, yeah, he's from Brooklyn, so, but I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to plug my own podcast. Folks, go to opsdesk.org. Here's why. We did a podcast yesterday, and we did two potential targets.
Excellent.
The Bidens and Fauci.
Wow.
There you go. So you're right on target. You're a born lawyer, which is a terrible thing to say to anybody. But we're drinking, so it's all right.
Well, my dad always said, what's the difference between a lawyer and a bag of shit?
The bag.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was a witty guy. Huh? I see where you get it.
Very highbrow.
Do you still talk to him? All right.
Hi, Dad. I miss you.
Anyway,
There we go.
I had to go there. Anyway, Yeah, Fauci, I think, actually is likely in more jeopardy of what you're talking about
Okay.
because it doesn't have it's an easier thing to create a narrative around because it doesn't have as much of a witch hunty feel. Because if they go with Hunter or James, it's going to be witch hunt,
Yeah.
Biden's, blah blah blah. Okay,
Yeah.
whether that's valid or not,
Let sleeping
okay,
Bidens lie.
that's right. And even
Yeah.
Trump has made some sort of head feints towards doing that.
Yep.
Fauci, on the other hand, is an issue of global importance because I think even if you are, someplace in Africa or in Asia or wherever, this was the plague of our time, and everybody would like an answer, if for no other reason, to make sure it doesn't happen again.
But see, that's what I've been saying this whole time because we have not internalized the lessons that were imposed upon us from COVID and the failures of that imposition.
That's right.
And this could happen again with bird flu.
And that's right. And they would love to gin that up because Trump is in office. And so if we can conjure another pandemic that they have to handle so that you hamstring his administration again, they would love that. So you're right. And I think that the final verdict on not only where COVID came from, which we all know came from the Wuhan lab, please.
Of course.
But there's 3 places on Earth, 3 or 4, I forget now, where gain-of-function research is done. One of them happens to be in Wuhan. Oh, and by the way, we got this mysterious, crazy new plague that came out of the same town, which nobody ever heard of previously.
Yes.
Come on. So there's that. But there's also the fact that it was handled so badly. And, I understand, you were trying to imprint maybe previous protocols onto something that was novel. That's what they literally called it, right? The novel coronavirus. But that said, we could get other novel viruses. We've all heard this stuff that, not only are they weaponizing these viruses, but because the rainforests are shrinking and all sort of stuff, you're being exposed, humankind is being exposed to new microbes.
New microbes, exactly.
So we need to know how to do this stuff. Fauci is the key, and this character won't talk. Get him into Congress, which I suspect Rand Paul's going to do.
I hope he does.
You put him under oath.
He wrote the book about it.
Now, Fauci's position and a lot of the scientific community's position is that we did fund Wuhan, but we didn't fund the coronavirus. And if you really follow the trail, none of the money went there. And to me, that misses the point. Why is $1 of American taxpayer money going to some Fugazi lab in God knows where in the outback of China?
And why is it being laundered through an NGO?
Exactly. And why were the comms in the emails, why did they very cognizantly use misspellings, et cetera, so that when it went into discovery, which is likely where you'd end up if there were a criminal case, none of the stuff would be retrievable. They misspelled COVID, they misspelled Corona. They did all this, sort of half-clever stuff.
That's so shady.
And it's just so incriminating. And we can never get to the bottom of it because even with a congressional investigation, let's say in the House before the Trump changeover here, you would never be able to get to ground zero, so to speak, because it's up to DOJ to enforce contempt.
Yeah.
So even if he says, I'm not talking, I'm not even showing up, what you have is the lever of, okay, DOJ, go out and grab this guy. He's in contempt and lock him up. That's what happened to Navarro. That's what happened to Bannon.
Exactly right.
But we didn't have the bully pulpit at the time, so you didn't have the lever to get him in. Now you got all 3 levers, including DOJ. And if anybody thinks that Pam Bondi is going to let him get away with that, so I think more likely than the Bidens, I think Fauci should not be.
I think he has more to answer for. Like, I think what the Bidens have done, I think other families have done it for as long as we've had a country. I think it's gross. I think it's just as disgusting that you have members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, especially Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, they're all rich.
Yeah, who make, like, the Nancy Pelosi stock trader dummy accounts, the people who follow her stock trades.
Yeah.
Those indices are up so much because they just follow what she's doing because she obviously has inside information. The other day, she shorted Google and either Microsoft or Amazon. But
Why don't you call me with these tips? What am I? A chopped liver over here? I mean, I'm on a fixed income. I'm a retiree. Help a brother out.
You can follow, the inverse Kramer and the Nancy Pelosi.
The inverse Kramer.
Yeah. So whatever Kramer tells you to do, you do the opposite.
There should be an inverse
you make
Mauro.
so
actually.
much money.
I want to really make money, but anyway.
Don't go anywhere. More Kennedy Saves the World right after this.
So we have the Bidens, we have the Fauci, We also have the Menendez brothers because we spoke about this and you enlightened me. I was already kind of skeptical because
That's what I'm here for.
whenever there's people coalesce around one celebrity cause, I'm always like,
That's why you are who you are. Sincerely now, because you're not lockstep. Going back to even to your MTV days. Good for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're right.
But the Menendez brothers, so they had their parole hearing postponed because of the LA wildfires.
Right.
What does that mean?
It means
Does it give, people who are also skeptical more time to go, yeah, maybe they shouldn't have killed the mom, keep them in prison?
Generally, when somebody is guilty as sin, and not that I'm saying they're guilty as sin, but I am saying they're guilty as sin in my estimation, you want to delay. That's the idea, is drag it out, drag it out. There's no point to that here because they've already done whatever it is, 30 years or something.
Yeah.
But what I think it had a chance to do is cool down the momentum of the TikTok crowd that was really advocating for them. And of course, now they've even lost TikTok.
Yes.
Which is not a small thing. They've realistically lost their PR arm.
Yeah.
Because that's where all of this came out of, right? So in light of that, I would argue that the momentum has begun to shift against them. And then, of course, you got the new DA. And it's ultimately going to be down to the DA.
Yeah, because George Gascon, before he was voted out,
Right.
this was his Hail Mary
That
to
was
try
his
and
That's
stay in
exactly
power.
right.
And
That's
people
right.
like, actually, no, you're so much worse than
Right.
this
So,
case.
look, if I would say that the odds have shifted against them, and I think that there's been a cooling down period, these things take on a life of their own. And one of the, to the extent that I have any insights, one of the insights that I try to impart sometimes is that the criminal justice system is not something that exists someplace in the matrix and it's a clockwork orange and it works, like the gears all just, lock into place. The criminal justice system is a fervent and idealistic, not ideological, idealistic attempt to try to impart justice to all of us. But at the end of the day, it is administered by human beings. And it's really, Stephen Miller, Trump's guy, makes a very good point. He talks about the Constitution, and he says, Iraq had a Constitution. Syria has a Constitution. A Constitution is only as good as the professionalism of the people who will
Great
administer
Britain does not
it.
have one.
What's that?
Great Britain does not have one.
Great Britain has only like the Magna Carta, right?
Well, yeah, they've got a series of...
And common law.
Yeah.
British common law, which we stole a lot of, and I think we took...
And still do.
The best stuff. Yeah, we still do. The difference is we have a First Amendment, and that's unique in our system.
Yes.
And that's the most important. The reason
even
it's
Prince
first,
Harry
folks,
called that bonkers. I can't believe you have a First Amendment. That's bonkers.
That's very
the
good.
press can say whatever they want.
Wow. All of a sudden, Piers Morgan has entered the studio, ladies and gents. Anyway.
Prince Harry's such a hack. I can't stand his wife.
Who? Piers Morgan's wife?
No, Prince Harry.
Oh, Prince Harry.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say. Prince Harry. Yeah, who's the wife? Markle? That
Yeah,
one?
Meghan Markle.
Get out of here with those two. They went on that crazy, not that we're going on a tangent here, but they went on that crazy run in Manhattan, and they claimed they were being chased and everything
At
else.
85 miles per hour. And I was like, I want to live in that Manhattan.
I was about to say
where
that.
people can
I
go
hire your
over
driver?
10 miles per hour. Please.
And not only that,
I would give him 16 stars.
the worst aspect of that story that was completely unexamined is that they claimed to get, in fact, folks, go to foxnews.com and read my piece on this. I did a parody of it. And it was like as the Canterbury Tales because it was so nonsensical. At the end of that whole thing, they decide to walk home.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
She's in a literally gold gown, down to her ankles. And he's in a tux or whatever he was in. They were coming from a black tie event. And we're supposed to believe that those two characters walked 6 blocks through the Upper East Side on whatever I forget what the weather was, but it just defied belief. Didn't happen. So in any case, they're still pushing that, by the way.
Yeah.
They still want an arrest off of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Get in line.
Yeah, that's right. NYPD's right on that, guys. Anyway, what the hell were we talking about? I don't remember.
We were talking about the Constitution. You can have a Constitution anywhere. They have one in Syria.
Oh, yeah, criminal justice system. Right. So at the end of the day, though, criminal justice system, like a constitution, is down to whoever administers it. And the shift against the Menendez brothers, I believe, has occurred, not only represented in the new DA, because Gascon got pasted. I mean, it wasn't even close.
Sure.
But in light, I would argue, of the fires, the clear incompetence of Mayor Bass and Newsom, And just the atmosphere towards the officials and the hyper-leftism in California's cities and LA specifically.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good time to be a Menendez brother. And I think that the atmosphere that had coalesced around them has dissipated. And I think that
I agree.
the facts now are going to matter more than the TikTok momentum they had.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think what happens is there are people who hope to capitalize on that critical mass, that cultural critical mass, which is fleeting. You know, there really is a very narrow window for that, and you have to have so much support in such a short amount of time. But any of the skeptics who knew that if you delay a little bit, people lose focus and you know their attention goes somewhere else completely, and I think this is one of those stories. Plus, you know, you're so right to point out the massive political shift that's about to take place in California.
Yeah.
And you know, the people that I talk to on a daily basis who've lost their homes.
Oh, you got the house, right?
Yeah,
right.
they're not political people.
Yeah.
But these are people who are very sad, very much in pain, don't have any answers. They don't know when the county is going to clean everything up. They don't know if they should wait for the city. Insurance companies don't know who to wait for because they are servicing so many claims for the people who actually had insurance. And then you have the people who didn't have insurance that the state and the county and the city are going to have to take care of. But all of the cleanup for all that toxicity is going to have to be coordinated.
Yeah.
And so people, they don't know what to do and they don't have their stuff. And now they're really pissed off.
And they got no money, and they have nobody to advocate for them. I'm glad Trump is going.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I am, because I like this idea that, look, you know, we're all Americans. I know you voted against me or whatever, but I'm going to come out there anyway. But I also like the idea of saying, look, we can't bail you out forever. You have to put a pipe from the north, for Christ's sake. Put a pipe that brings the water down. I'm not a water engineer, but when the hydrants don't work, just in a macro sense, somebody's got to look at that.
Or when, you know, you have these cycles where you've got, you know, 8 months of nonstop rain, which happens in California.
I know it does.
I don't know if you've been around desert rain, but it doesn't sprinkle. Like, I grew up in Oregon where it sprinkles, like all day long for months at a time. There, it is a deluge. Streets are flooded instantly. So that means there has to be a better collection process for that water. And that's when you build new reservoirs and fill them up. So God forbid something like this happens. You have water at the ready, because whatever Karen Bass says, none of that happened. And it really, like, it wakes me up at night because I get so upset about that, just thinking about the loss and the devastation. And I watch these videos of my friends on Instagram and Facebook.
Terrible. I can't even watch them
the
anymore.
time lapse of the flames just coming closer and closer over a period of hours, and there's not a fire truck to be seen in these vistas. And you know, it's like I watched one today. It was on one of the hills in the Palisades, and you could see the fire like slowly changing color with this hellish smoke cloud, and you can see the grid, you can see the streets. People have fled, and there are no fire trucks. So
it's terrible.
When there was no one there to tell them how to mobilize and to free the resources to get there immediately, because time was of the essence, and they just let everything burn.
It was biblical. And you hate to say this, but like, it may have taken something like this for people to say, look, LA, as you and I know, is a desert. All right. You know, they created it in a desert, right? And water's always been the issue. And they lost that prime directive that if we're going to build this gigantic city that's very sprawling.
So Chinatown was about.
That's what Chinatown's about. Exactly right. I was going to reference that, but you beat me to it. Thank you for that. Okay. I'm a little less clever than I was about 30 seconds ago, folks. But desert land does not, you're right, doesn't absorb water because it's so dry. You need continued rain to soften it up. And so and as a result, it's all runoff and it goes away. That's the classic story, desertification. That's literally the word. That's what the Israelis fight all the time. And that's what a lot of the Middle Eastern countries have been over there, that they can't get that aspect solved. So you need something that is sustained, and you're right. That's why there are reservoirs, but reservoirs are no good if they don't have water in them. That's common sense. All of these things mitigate, to get back to your foundational point here, mitigate against the Menendez brothers. The facts now, everybody can take a step back and say, we're not going to do this because the TikTok kids want it. We're going to do this on the basis. And you were out ahead of it. You brought it up, and we talked about it. And I think that hopefully, in my mind, it's going to go that way, because if you really tease the facts out, those two guys really do belong in jail. You can have some sympathy for what ostensibly occurred to them, allegedly, and especially the younger one. I think that the one with the hair, not the one with the toupee. The one with the rug is bad news.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if the rug caused it or what, but that, from all reports, that one probably should remain in jail. And look,
yeah, whoever went back and shot the mom,
that's
the overkill, the older one.
Yeah, and he was
should
like the architect.
Absolutely stay in prison.
That kind of thing.
There's no excuse for that.
Yeah, so just to recap, they did the shooting. The mother survived. She was crawling away for her life, and which I can never remember which one it was, but he went outside, got more ammunition, went back in, and finished her off. And according to the forensics, she was like, shielding her. She had defensive wounds. She knows, here comes my son to finish me off after he just did my husband. There are things in life that are unforgivable.
Yes.
And we're in that realm.
Yeah. Killing your mom when she wasn't the perpetrator. That's one of them.
Yeah, and their excuses for it are ever shifting.
Interesting.
She was in on it, or I did it to put her out of her misery because she was beholden to my father. Once you have all these competing narratives, you really start to undermine.
Yes, so this has been the podcast of Shady Brothers, from the Menendez brothers to the Biden brothers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. No shortage of shady brothers in this country these days.
Here's to Shady Brothers and dissecting their crimes. To Paul Mauro, this has been Kennedy Saves the World Happy Hour. I'm Kennedy.
Speaking of shady.
Listen ad-free with the Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app. Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.